Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and the Wonder Twins, issue number 6. I am so glad that this is going up to a 12-issue limited series, maxi series, whatever they're calling it, because this is good, man. And this comic book, if Mark Russell wants to keep on writing this book, then just let him keep on writing this book, man. This is his book. This is his baby. And I'm going to talk to you about a really cool conversation I had afterwards and how this book came up. All right, so spoilers, Mark Russell is the writer for this comic book. The artist and cover artist is Stephen Byrne. Love that. You get to see what's inside and outside. And he does all the art. And Stacey Lee does the variant cover. Dave Sharp does the letters, and that's pretty much it. That's it for this comic book. This issue is called The Great Scramble. Wow, man. So the Scrambler, he suddenly becomes a potentially major villain in this. Why? From the League of Annoyance. Why? Because with Polymath, they have discovered a way to upload his scramble ability in multiple different ways. One of those ways is through email, if he so chooses. But much like in Deceased, how that version of the techno-organic virus can go through technology to get to you and to convert you into a zombie, this too can scramble you. And his scramble is basically a mind transference where he can switch his mind with anybody, or he can have other people's minds switch with each other. And he's going to do this on a global scale. He already did it with 1 million people. And there's some people who end up in jail who shouldn't have been in jail. They're in somebody else's body right now. Their mind is in someone else's body. There's no way to prove whether this really did or didn't happen, right? Because the bodies are the same. Fingerprints are the same. I mean, what are you going to do? Learn how to do brain scans? So the Justice League is going out of their way to try and figure out how to make sure that this stops. More than that, what's the reason why the Scrambler is doing this? What's the reason why Polymath is doing this, the daughter of Philomath? Well, the reason why they're doing it is because politicians just don't care. They don't have any reason to care. They're incentivized, in fact, to not care, to maintain the status quo. This is a really great political discourse in here, social discourse. Listen to me. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care if you like capitalism, like socialism, like libertarianism, if you're progressive. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal. None of that matters. This comic book, this issue, with an open mind, is going to be the best comic book that you've ever read that does remind you of how crappy the social, political, and economic system is in the world, how politicians are all bought off and paid to maintain the status quo, meaning let the rich get richer and allow the poor to keep getting poorer, to expand the gap between the rich and the poor. That 1% will become a 0.01%, will become a 0.001%, and geez, there are 18 people in this world that are richer than the rest of this world, for crying out loud. I mean, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. And this comic book addresses that, and how the politicians have no reason, nobody, in power, nobody who has the ability to change that system has any reason to change that system. But if everybody's mind gets scrambled, if suddenly these politicians suddenly become, you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know if all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh, now you're in the body of a poor person. Now you're in the body of a socially, screwed over person. Now you might not even be an American anymore. You don't know where you're going, but you're going someplace in 30 days. It gives the politicians a reason to actually make changes and to make everything equal. And in this world, at least, is it realistic? I would say, yeah. How did we get to the moon? We got to the moon because we said we're going to the moon, and it became a political reason that we're going to the moon. So we made it by, hell or high water. We were going to the moon. Haven't had a lot of progress since because there's no money in going to the moon, right? At least no immediate money in going to the moon. But the idea is that in this book, we get that. We get the idea that we are now finally, the people in charge who have the power are incentivized to absolutely make everything equal for people. By the time you get to the end of this book, I think you're going to grit your teeth and just say, damn, this was good. And yeah, you're right. It was. It is. It's funny that I got into a conversation about economics and representation. That's my main concern in the political economic sphere, is that we don't really have the representation that we're owed as citizens of whatever country we belong to. We need to have an actual say, and just voting for the lesser of two evils isn't good enough. We want to actually be represented for the taxes that we pay. It's kind of in the American, state of mind. No taxation without representation. I had a conversation with somebody before, and the conversation actually went about an hour long, is what it is. And by the end of it, we wound up agreeing on a lot of stuff. He wasn't quite so staunch as he thought he was. And when I gave him alternatives to what he was thinking, as I often say, to bring a conversation, to bring a thought to its logical conclusion, when he did that with his original mindset, he realized that he's not quite as staunch as he thought he was. And I thought that the conversation ended really well, and he walked away with a big smile also. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing. And at the end of it, I actually handed him this book off the shelves. And I said, just read this book. Just read this issue and see what I mean. And he was very, he was, I think he bought the book. I hope he bought the book. And I would love to find out next week, what he thought about it. But, yeah, it was a really good conversation. And this comic book has a little something to do with that conversation. I think that you're going to enjoy it. I don't care which political sphere you're from. I don't care. I don't think that it's going to bother you, the things that are written or said in this comic book. I think in anything, you're going to agree like crazy. I think this is one of those few times when anybody from either side or every side from the aisle, in all their different levels of where they're at in their support of this, or their non-support, I think everybody's going to agree that this is a really good comic book, and maybe this is something that we should consider. Maybe this is the kind of threat that we do need to consider. Anyway, guys, loved this issue if you can't tell. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.